What if the Roman Empire never fell? Imagine standing inside the Roman Forum around the year 400 CE. Marble temples shine in the sunlight. Senators argue inside the Curia. Legions march across distant frontiers, enforcing Roman order from Britain to Egypt. But within just a few generations, all of this would collapse. The Western Roman Empire fell in 476 CE, leaving Europe fragmented and plunging much of the continent into centuries of feudalism, poverty, and conflict. But what if it hadn't? What if the Roman Empire never fell? Would we live in a world of marble cities, aqueducts, and Latin-speaking nations? Would technology have advanced faster, or would the empire's own flaws have dragged humanity down? Today, we'll dive into one of the greatest what-ifs in history. Part 1. Why the Roman Empire fell. Before imagining a world where it survived, we need to understand why it didn't. Barbarian invasions. Germanic tribes, Huns, and eventually the Visigoths and Vandals stormed Rome's borders. In 410 CE, the Visigoths sacked Rome itself. In 476, the last emperor of the West, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed. Economic problems. Rome's economy depended on constant conquest and slavery. Once expansion slowed, so did the flow of wealth. Inflation, heavy taxation, and corruption weakened the empire. Military overstretch. Rome's borders stretched thousands of miles. Defending them drained resources. Armies were increasingly filled with foreign mercenaries loyal only to their pay. Internal corruption. Political instability plagued Rome. Emperors rose and fell rapidly, sometimes murdered by their own guards. Stability was rare. In short, the empire collapsed under its own weight, attacked from without and hollowed from within. But what if those problems had been solved? Part 2. A surviving Rome, the turning point. Let's imagine an alternate timeline. Around the year 350 CE, Rome undergoes crucial reforms. Economic reform. Instead of debasing currency, strong emperors stabilize trade, invest in infrastructure, and shift toward a sustainable taxation system. Military reform. Rome develops smaller, more mobile armies, using defensive strategies rather than endless conquests. Cultural integration. Instead of treating conquered peoples as second class, Rome expands citizenship and loyalty to the empire. Succession reform. A clear, lawful system for succession reduces civil wars and assassinations. With these changes, Rome could have survived. The Western Empire doesn't collapse in 476. Instead, it enters the medieval period still unified, still powerful, and still Roman. Sorry for stopping the story real quick. I just want to say something. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Let's grow this community together and hit 200 subs, guys. Alright, back to the story. Part 3. Daily life in a world where Rome survived. If Rome never fell, what would everyday life look like for ordinary people? Cities, not villages. Instead of Europe's small feudal villages, vast Roman-style cities continue to dominate. Roads remain maintained, aqueducts continue bringing clean water, public baths and forums remain the center of life. Education. Latin remains the universal language. Instead of each kingdom developing its own tongue, Europe might have grown up bilingual, with everyone speaking their local dialect alongside Latin, like today's English. Religion. Christianity would still rise, but with Rome intact, pagan traditions might linger longer. Religious wars between Catholics and Protestants might never happen, because Rome would suppress large schisms. Technology. Without the collapse, inventions might spread faster. The wheelbarrow, crop rotation, and even early machines could develop centuries earlier. Imagine steam power not in the 18th century, but in the 10th. Part 4. Politics and power. The greatest impact of a surviving Rome would be political. No feudalism. With centralized authority intact, feudal lords wouldn't carve Europe into fragmented kingdoms. Knights, castles, and serfs may never exist in the same way. Instead, citizens remain tied to the empire, not to local lords. One superpower. Instead of a Europe of rival nations, France, England, Spain, there would be one dominant Roman state. This could prevent centuries of wars like the 100 Years' War or the Wars of Religion. Colonialism accelerated. Rome already traded with India and China. With better ships and stable power, Roman explorers might have reached the Americas long before Columbus. The Age of Discovery could have happened 1,000 years earlier. Law and citizenship. Roman law would unify the empire. Human rights, as understood by Rome, property rights, contracts, citizenship, would be more widespread centuries earlier. Part 5. Technology and Science. One of the most exciting what-ifs is technology. Engineering Rome mastered concrete, aqueducts, and road building. If that knowledge hadn't been lost, medieval cities wouldn't be wooden huts. They'd be stone and marble metropolises. Medicine. Roman doctors lacked germ theory, but they valued cleanliness. With continuous progress, medical breakthroughs could come earlier. Hospitals, sanitation, and even early antibiotics might arrive centuries before they did. Printing and knowledge. In our world, the printing press was invented in the 15th century, but in a surviving Rome, with vast literacy and central power, it could have emerged centuries earlier, spreading knowledge across the empire. Industrial Revolution. In antiquity, historians debate whether Rome was on the edge of industrialization. They had steam-powered toys, complex gears, and water mills. If they pushed further, the Industrial Revolution might have begun in the year 800 instead of 1800. Imagine space travel starting not in the 20th century, but in the 15th. Part 6. Rome and the rest of the world. What about outside Europe? China. The Roman and Han empires already traded via the Silk Road. A surviving Rome might forge closer ties, creating a global super network of trade between East and West. Islamic world. In our timeline, the Islamic caliphates rose after Rome's fall, preserving much of Greek and Roman knowledge. But in a surviving Roman world, the empire might resist or absorb Islamic expansion. The Crusades might never happen. Americas. If Rome discovered the Americas centuries earlier, the entire course of Native American civilizations could change. Would the Aztecs and Mayans fall sooner? Would Rome integrate them or exploit them as colonies? Africa. Rome already controlled North Africa. With stable rule, trade with sub-Saharan Africa could have been more extensive, possibly reshaping African history centuries before European colonization. Part 7. The Dangers of Eternal Rome. Of course, not everything would be utopian. A Rome that never fell might also have dangerous downsides. Authoritarianism. Rome was not a democracy by its end. An eternal Rome could mean an eternal dictatorship. Freedoms might be limited. Dissent could be crushed for centuries. Slavery. Rome's economy was built on slaves. Without collapse, slavery might persist much longer, perhaps into the modern age. Stagnation. A single superpower can also slow progress. Without competition from rival nations, technological and cultural innovation might have been less dynamic. Cultural homogenization. Local cultures might vanish under a global Roman identity. Diversity, languages, and traditions could be wiped out. So while an eternal Rome might bring aqueducts, steam engines, and paved highways centuries earlier, it could also bring millennia of imperial control. Conclusion. The fall of Rome plunged Europe into centuries of hardship, but it also created the space for new nations, cultures, and ideas to flourish. A Rome that never fell might have given us flying machines and space travel centuries earlier, but it might also have locked humanity into a rigid empire where freedom was rare and change came slowly. So perhaps the greatest irony is this: the collapse of Rome, as tragic as it seemed, might have been necessary for the birth of the modern world. And here's the question I'll leave you with. Would you prefer a world where Rome never fell, advanced, unified, and powerful? Or are we better off with the messy, chaotic history that actually happened? Because sometimes, what seems like disaster is what makes progress possible.